name is Jason J. Rock Houston, and you're listening to Chaotic Riffs Magazine. We can be found on the web at www.chaoticriffs.com, and our special guest today is legendary Armored Saint singer John Bush. Welcome to the show, John.
What's happening, Jason? How are you, sir?
I'm doing great now. Like a lot of people, I'm a longtime Armored Saint fan, and I got to tell you, your publicist sent me a copy of the new CD to check out, and I got to tell people the album is called Pushing the Sky. It comes out October 23rd. I really urge you to go out and get it. Not that I haven't liked everything you guys done, but I was reading in the press release that you really spent a lot of time when you're making the album, kind of really concentrate on each of the individual songs, and I can hear that because I can tell the people. There's 11 tunes on the album, and each one really just stands out on their own, and it's a great album from top to bottom.
Well, thank you so much. Obviously, we like to hear that because we want people to dig what we did, and we are super proud of it. And all these years after being a band and making records, and to feel like we can still kind of deliver some quality songs and powerful music, we feel pretty accomplished. So we're glad to hear that you feel that way, and of course, we hope the fans feel that way as well. And we dig it. We can't wait to. We're playing some new songs on the live stream show that we're doing tomorrow.
Oh, wow.
But it would be nice to, do some more shows with fans in the crowd and play these new songs. And hopefully, maybe in the new year, we'll get a chance to do that.
Oh, okay. I wasn't even aware. Talk a little bit about the live stream show you guys are doing tomorrow, because that's kind of interesting, because I know a lot of people were doing stuff like that on Facebook, but when Facebook seen how successful that was, they kind of shut that down. So where can people check this out, this event?
So you can go to armoredsaint.veeps. It's spelled VEEPS.com. And once again, armoredsaint.veeps, VEEPS.com. And then you can get tickets through that. There's you can buy a ticket just to go to watch the show. It's like $10. I think it's pretty reasonable. And then you could also get like a bundle where you can get the record,
cool.
Or you can get a bundle with a record and the T-shirt. And so it's going to be really cool. And we're doing it from the Whiskey A Go-Go, which is legendary club here in Los Angeles that the Doors played at, and Van Halen.
Yeah.
Rest in peace.
Yes.
Eddie.
Yeah.
And so it's going to be fun.
And
it's going to be weird because there's no crowd.
Yeah.
It's going to be like kind of a glorified rehearsal in a way, although we will be rocking out.
Yeah.
But this is what we got to do in this crazy COVID world that we live in.
And it's kind of going to be interesting because you're going to be like, I'm sure you guys will put on a great show, but you don't, like you said, you don't have a roar of a crowd to kind of feed off of.
Yeah, that's definitely going to be a drawback. Play a show, and then at the end of the crowd, there's no clapping or cheering, and I like to put the mic in the crowd and have crowds sing certain parts, and I don't have the luxury of doing that, so that means I'm going to have to sing every part.
Yeah.
I do like to have banter with the crowd where it's a little one-on-one, and it's going to be weird. I'm going to be talking to the camera, so hopefully I'll still be a good frontman.
I'm sure you will be. And it's kind of interesting. I'm surprised that they're even allowing you, because I'm from Los Angeles area too. I'm surprised the governor here is even allowing something like that to take place, because I recently heard him go on TV saying, I don't know, as long as I'm governor, if I'm ever going to allow any concert events to take place in the state, which is a really sad state of affairs, because I know what's going on, but on the other hand, I don't think you need to, for the rest of our lives, lock everything down,
Well, I mean, did he say that?
I mean,
indefinite.
I mean, not indefinite, but I mean, you kind of hear these, people go on TV and they kind of make these broad statements, and it's sad because Los Angeles used to be the heart of, like down there where the whiskey is you're talking, used to be the heart of the music industry, and it's so sad with what's going on these days that a lot of those clubs like the Troubadour are really in danger of closing down for good,
Yeah, I know. And that's one of the reasons we want to do this, because the whiskey, we don't want the whiskey to
go down.
Away. It's a legendary show, a club. Same with the Troubadour. So we want these venues to survive, and they're struggling, of course. So if we can help, and they can, obviously they're going to help us, and we're helping one another, and I think that's really important. So I don't,
Yeah.
Unfortunately, concerts are probably going to be one of the last things that happens, because even if you have, whether you have 10,000 people at a show or 500 in a club, still a lot of people in close-knit quarters where they're screaming and singing and rubbing up against each other, and so I get it, but I mean, let's not kill our careers here.
Yeah. I mean,
please.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, it's interesting. That's why I kind of dig like the streaming event you're putting on tomorrow, because while things have changed and altered drastically, at least it allows a band like Armored Saint, or really any band, to get out there and kind of do their thing. If you can't perform for people live, you can kind of say, okay, well, we're going to do this show, so if you want to check it out, this is what you have to do. It's kind of finding a new way around that, which I dig.
Right. Well, sometimes life, it just brings out just
changes,
where you have to just adjust, and let's face it, we're all adjusting to this. I guess I was telling somebody earlier that maybe the good thing about it being a pandemic is that everybody
is
can
affected.
Kind of relate, to some degree, whether you're Britain or South America or Japan or the States.
All world's affected.
We're all dealing with it. So in that capacity, I think that's a good thing, because we can identify with all of our frustration. We just. I'm just, with times like these, you gotta kind of get creative, and that's what we're doing. So.
And at the top interview, I introduced you as the legendary John Bush from Armored Saint, and I did that because, John, I don't think people even realize, and I didn't realize till I was reading the press release that was sent to me for the new album to read up on, and it was saying the fact that Armored Saint has been around 4 decades. 4 decades, that's 40 years. I mean, what an accomplishment. I mean, I think people even listening to this fail to realize the band's been around that long.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome, and it's still the same guys. Dave Prichard, who died in 1990, who we miss every day. But other than that, it's the same guys. I mean, Jeff Duncan joined the band. Phil Sandoval came in and out of the band, and came back in, and Jeff was in. He came in in around 1988. He was actually part of the writing process of Symbol of Salvation, and he's the new guy.
Still.
But, and probably forever will be, and he kind of doesn't like it, but it's funny, but it's pretty cool that this bond is here, and it's the same dudes, and there's a personal investment in the scene. It's not like somebody's like a hired guy and gets a good paycheck, so he's happy to go on stage. Everyone has a personal investment in this, and I think it's without sounding a little too campy, it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, and as you just mentioned, Dave Prichard. I mean, the one guy that did kind of is no longer there. It wasn't he didn't leave the band, or it wasn't really his choice. Unfortunately, he succumbed to this awful disease, cancer, which kind of also brings up the thought of Eddie Van Halen, who just passed away a few days. I mean, cancer is it is really it's an awful thing. It takes a lot of lives.
It certainly does. It took Ronnie's life. Dave had leukemia, and back in 1988, 89, when we found out, he leukemia. It was basically a death sentence. They've made a lot of strides in that world, and they've actually were able to prolong a lot of people's lives with it now, which is great. But it was so bad that he had to have a bone marrow transplant.
I remember.
And it didn't take, and that was the end. But Dave was awesome. He's an amazing, vibrant personality, and I always feel like he's with us when we play. And I think he's there, and the guys will sometimes write a riff, and it'll be like, that sounds like Dave. Sounds like something Dave would write. So so I think he's still kind of channeling through us all the time, and it's great.
And let me ask you, John, because you guys, the rest of you guys in the band, when he passed on, you were very young at the time. That must have been a very hard thing to go through, and I was just kind of curious. Did you ever have any doubt that the band was going to carry on, or what was that like to go through such a hard thing at such a young age?
I was. I was probably the guy at that particular juncture that probably was ready to call it, and it was Gonzo and Joey that actually said we need to get these songs that we'd made recorded and get them out and for the people to hear them, because we spent so much time and effort, including Dave, working on them. I think I was just despondent. I was
Of
going
course.
through a couple things at the time.
Yeah.
I just didn't know how to cope, quite frankly. But I'm glad we did. And then we regrouped, and then we brought back Phil, and then we brought back Jeff.
Yeah.
And we went back to Metal Blade, which, is, of course, home base for us. And
Yeah.
Brian Slagle, basically rescued us, and we're eternally grateful for him. And we love him, and we're still with Metal Blade. And
That's great. Yeah.
It's just a great environment. So and then we ended up making, records that probably is like the cornerstone of our careers. So,
Yeah.
You dig deep, man, and when you're at your lowest point sometimes, and you do incredible things at that point.
And I imagine, when you go through something like that too, being a songwriter, it kind of, it can also be something to influence you in your songwriting. Hey, I just gone through this awful thing, let's write a song about it, or whatever the case may be, which brings me to the new record. Now, first of all, I got to also say, John, I think it's cool that, the fact that Armored Saint's been around for 40 years and you're an established band, like a lot of your other peers, you could have kind of just said, you know what, we're just going to live on our catalog of music, we've got enough material, we can go out there and do our thing. But I dig the fact that, an established band like Armored Saint is still, even in this, in this era of the pandemic and stuff, you have a lot of bands just saying, holding off on their release to say, we're not going to release it during this pandemic. We're going to just hold off on I dig the fact that if you guys can't go out and, do touring like you typically do, you're still giving your fans, something like a new album, and it's not just like a 4-song EP. I dig that. And I got to tip my hat to you guys.
Yeah, well, to me, it wouldn't make sense to hold the record because it's almost like you're doing the fans a double disservice.
Yeah.
You can't play, so and then we're not giving you the record, and so we want people to be able to listen to the record and get into it and check out of what's happening in society, and this craziness time where they can kind of just go in their room and put on some headphones and listen to the record. So to me, that's the ultimate kind of savior for it. And so it's important. And we want to. Sure, you could be a band that's kind of just rest on in your past, and believe me, we love our past.
Yeah.
But we're still yearning to write new music and make new songs and do things that I think are shows massive growth, and we have a lot to say still, so we want to say it.
Now, I was reading that Dizzy Reed, the keyboardist from Guns N' Roses, that he was somehow involved with the album. Could you talk a little bit about what his involvement was?
Yeah, Dizzy, I don't know Dizzy personally. He was a friend of Jeff Duncan's, and Jeff's done a lot of things with him. And I think it was a conversation that Jeff and Joey had about a couple different keyboard parts that we wanted to put on a couple songs.
Cool.
And so they got Dizzy, and he was great. He embellished them as the awesome player that he is, and we're grateful to have him on the record. And he's just, it was cool to add those parts of the songs because it just kind of, it adds another color, and it adds just a little different feel to those songs, and he's super talented, so it's awesome. And
I got to tell people, I've listened, knowing that I was going to talk to you today, I listened to the entire album from top to bottom because I think, it helps in doing the interview. But in any event, I can tell if people are afraid that Armored Saint's all of a sudden going to sound like, poppy like Bon Jovi. Not even, I wouldn't even known Dizzy Reed was on the album except for, I read about it. But, Armored Saint, if you listen to this new album, still sounds very, very metal. And I've always said, I think there's a place for keyboards in rock or metal. You just have to kind of do it right. My best example of that is just listen to anything Deep Purple did, like, when John Lord was around. You can't tell me they didn't rock it up,
Come on, man. Burn is like one of the raddest rock songs of all time. And, that's just one of their many.
Yeah.
But we're not putting keyboards in and replacing guitar.
No, that's the point I'm trying to make. That's the point.
So, it just adds another color. We're certainly not, changing the style of the band by putting keyboards and saying we're eliminating guitar.
Yeah.
The power of the music is there. It just is on top of it.
Oh yeah, and I can definitely tell people, like, I wouldn't even know there's a keyboard on the album just by listening, unless I'd known I'd read that Dizzy had some involvement in the album, which is kind of, because there's you're not going to hear like Dizzy Reed doing a keyboard solo. It's the main part of the song. It still very much sounds like Armored Saint. Now I got to tell you, John, again, I just love every single track on there, but I got to say two of my favorite tracks. Let's start off with Standing on the Shoulder. I seen the video for that, and I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about the video, but I tell you, watching the video, it kind of you tell me if I'm wrong or not, but I kind of took it as like kind of the current state of the world. The band's kind of looking around outside like, oh, this is what we're going through right now. But talk a little bit about the video, because I thought it was a real cool video.
Yeah, the video is great. It kind of almost changed the meaning of the song in some weird way.
Yeah.
It wasn't the intention, but it kind of did. It kind of created this thing of nature versus industry, which is the thing we're struggling with, I think. And, it came out right around the same times that all these crazy wildfires were happening.
Wow.
It shows the fragility of the environment, and the beauty of what could be with the mountains and the lake in that video, which is crazy because the guy who directed it lives in Romania.
Wow.
So he took all that footage from Romania, but it is beautiful, some of it. And then the band footage is cool too, because it just looks a little almost like, I don't know what the proper way to describe it, but almost animated in a way. So
yeah, it did, and I was almost that's my next question I was going to ask you, because like the outdoor scenes almost looked like it might have been. I was going to ask you, it almost looked like it's going to be downtown Los Angeles, or I even thought it could have maybe been like green screened in.
No, it was somewhere in Romania. I don't even know where we lived.
That's amazing.
I don't know if it was Bucharest or where.
Wow.
It was, it was in Romania. And he did, he was kind of upset because we had a lot of corrections for him to make. And, there was a language barrier, and I think he probably got a little annoyed. But in the end, he made the video look amazing, and it's very contrasting to the first video that we made, which is End of the Attention Span, which is a lot more intense and just a whole different vibe. So and then we just finished a new video. Well, we're almost done with it. We shot it, but we're waiting for some cuts for the song Missile the Gun, and that's going to be completely different as well. So it's crazy because we're going to end up making 3 videos here in this first 2 months, and I mean, I was like, if this is the 80s, man, we'd be like all over MTV, because these are like really good videos.
Yeah, which
they're
that's
amazing.
That's an interesting point, because it amazes me that bands like Armored Saint of that caliber are still making music videos, because we don't have like MTV or even VH1 or even Headbangers Ball like you did back in the day. But like a band like Armored Saint, you could post that on your YouTube channel and enough of the fans will go and check it out. I almost think, it gets more hits that way than they did back in the days when you did have Headbangers Ball, because unless you were a Megadeth or a Metallica, you might not even get your video played on MTV till like 4 o'clock in the morning. Who's going to...
This is true. So, I mean, YouTube allows people to just go immediately to it. So, and that's a great thing. So, it's a different world. It's a little different approach. Videos are actually pretty still important.
I agree.
And they, as long as they embellish the song, and we believe ours certainly have, more than I could even imagine, actually. So, it's still a cool tool to use.
Well, and it's interesting, because I've been seeing all these things this year about like MTV's now like it's turned into like a reality network. I don't even know what channel it even is anymore, but I've been reading all this stuff on Facebook, like MTV's like 30 years old or something like that, but they only played music videos for 8 years. I mean, let's just think about that.
Yeah, it kind of turned into something else, which is, hey, what are you going to do? It's, I guess, business. But, it started off with just being strictly a video channel. And, let's face it, MTV broke so many bands. Bands, mega stars. So, and it became a powerful thing. I mean, I don't know. Do people still watch MTV? And what are they watching on MTV?
Yeah.
the longest time it was, I don't know. I mean, Jackass was cool. That was awesome.
Yeah,
but,
yeah.
Like, I don't know what was the game show that Jenny McCarthy had. Or
Yeah. Like I said, it's turned into reality stuff, but that is what it is. But I gotta say too, but the other video you mentioned, which is end of attention span. I love both videos, but like you said, that I watched that video and I thought there was a little more. It looked a little more complex, as you said, a little more. I love both videos, so don't get me wrong, but it just it looked, I don't know, more put together. I don't know if that's the right word, but I love both of the videos, and that one in particular is obviously about how people get distracted by their electronic devices and video games and that. So I thought right away it was a very interesting take, and it kind of made me think as I listened throughout the entire album. I'm assuming a lot of these songs are based on kind of what's going on in the current state of the world.
Yeah, it's impossible to not look around and have multiple things to choose to write about. Let's face it. Not always the good things, but that's metal.
It's the state of the world, yeah.
Right. But yeah, it's the world we live in. I mean, I could probably write lyrics for like 10 albums at this point.
Yeah.
But I don't always want to get into the social commentary of what's happening. But there's times when it's hard to
ignore.
To ignore it. So it's just about being creative and how you write about stuff. And I love that song because it's really powerful. It kind of sounds a little throwbacky, but it does sound kind of modern at the same time. And the video is cool. It kind of, I get worried about the dependency of these devices that is affecting everybody, not just kids. And I see it with my kids.
Okay.
And it affects me.
Yeah.
My wife, bust my chops, says, she'll be asking me a question and I'll be like texting somebody and like, John. And it's like, oh, what? Like, dude, I'm talking to you.
Wow.
So we all have this issue.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny, there's a little humor in it, of course, too. But, I think of balance. It's all about balance, and that's kind of what the song is about, is trying to find balance with it. So
now Missile to Gun, that was another track I really liked. My take on that is kind of I don't know if it's more like to do with the military, but or is it kind of just like the current violence on the streets? What's your take on that?
I think it's I kind of use a little bit of the divisiveness that's kind of taking place in America right now. And where my hope and what I'm slightly alluding to as the song goes through is saying like maybe our differences aren't as great as we want to perceive them to be. And because I think the simple things in life are really what most people kind of still yearn for, and they're common. So that's kind of what the insinuation of the song is, and if we don't kind of sort it out, then we could be regressing, and that's kind of like how the take is on the chorus lyrics. So I'm proud of that song. I think it's another cool song. It's it's a heavy hitter. It's just a slammer. It's, musically, it's probably not reinventing the wheel, but it sounds like kind of vintage Armored Saint. And,
I would agree with that.
It's powerful.
And another track I dug was like Lone Wolf. Have you ever felt like you were a lone wolf, a lone man out, John? Like any? I'm sure we all have, Yeah.
I mean, there was a period of time. I was just talking to somebody about this recently. I went through being single for a long period of time in my life, and had little relationships here and there that were unfortunately just not much. But it's kind of I'm paying a little tribute to people who do live life on their own, and how they still got to cope and they still got to live, and still had to be confident and deal with the insecurities that we all have. And I love that song. I think it's a really cool. That song is a little bit more taking a turn, right field a little bit. But I think it's a really, really cool song. Great vocals on it. Cool background vocals. It's emotional. I dig it.
And going back to Missile to Gun just for a minute, I kind of agree. Like a lot of people, I'm into politics, but I don't take it all that serious. I mean, like I was just having a discussion with somebody the other day. I was saying, okay, if you don't like who the president is, first of all, go out and vote. And at worst case scenario, maybe he'll get in office for another 4 years. Maybe he won't. But at the same time, I'm not going to go take to the street and start looting and hurting people, to me, it's not all that serious,
Yeah, right. Well, I mean, this is, everybody's very passionate about stuff right now, regardless of what side of the fence you're on. I get it. There's a lot at stake and what people feel, and people are passionate about how they feel, and that's fine. I just think that really, when it comes down to it, like, I'm a simpleton, and I kind of think that, like, let's just talk about guys. Most guys just, like, want to have a good meal. Like to have a good job. They want to have, like, some cool entertainment, whatever that is, music or sports or all of the above. They would like to get laid, and have a good night's sleep. I mean, you really kind of want that, especially the older you get. So it's like, this is what we really kind of all really need. That's, like, really the essential things, not to dumb it down, but like, I think that, like, the simple things are things that we should kind of connect with. And all the other things that are a little bit more complex, sure, you can acknowledge that, but certainly not to the point of, having this utter animosity that seems to be happening, and that's too bad, because I bet you we'd find
more common ground.
A lot of similarities. That probably outweigh those. So.
And I gotta say, John, I think Armored Saint, the longer you guys go on, I think, especially the last several years, I think there's a newfound respect for the band. There's, and what I mean by that is, for example, I mean, I've heard, throughout your whole career, I'm sure you've always heard people talk about the big four, which is Anthrax, Megadeth, Metallica, Slayer. And I think, I think maybe there should have been, a big five, because I think Armored Saint should have been in with those bands, as far as, their popularity and stuff. But you guys, like you said, you're survivors. You're still doing it 4 decades, later.
Well, I can never get caught up too much in, like, the actual success and fame of it all, because, I mean, don't get me wrong. Of course we want success. We don't make a record and don't want anybody to buy it, because that would be a true lie. But really, when you make a record, there's so much at stake as to how success and numbers are increased, and so much of it is just not in your hands, and so you can't really kind of let that dictate the quality of the music. I think that for us, it's really, like, about making the highest quality of music we can, and then letting it go, doing everything we can to kind of help promote it. But what people feel about that's entirely up to them. And we all have our own taste. And I am the same. I like bands, and there's bands I don't. So I don't get too caught up in that. Obviously, like I said, we want to do well.
Of course,
we're not, like, doing this to do poorly. But I think there's a certain amount of letting go that happens, and that has to happen once you finish a record. You just have to, because if you put out a record and then say it does poorly, then you'll be like, that wasn't a good record, and that's not true. Because there's a lot of great, amazing records that nobody knows about, and there's a lot of really successful records that I personally think are garbage. So, again, it's just personal taste. That's what it is when it comes to music and anything artistic, for that matter. And you just can't. You just never know.
And it's interesting because a good example of that is, like, that Motley Crue album they did with John Corabi. That album now is over 20 years old, but it is still kind of it stands the test of time. And interestingly enough, I think more and more people are getting into that album as time goes on. But at the same time, people don't love it as much as, say, like, Shout at the Devil, and that's because I think part of the reason for that is, as great as that John Corabi is as a singer, I think just the fact that they made that statement calling it Motley Crue, a lot of fans did not like that. But it's a great album, And
I agree. John Corabi is really talented, and believe me, I know. I had to follow Joey Belladonna's footsteps, and that wasn't easy to do. So I understand how it is to try to become a singer of an established band. It's pretty challenging. So, but you just do your own thing, and you can, and like what I say the same thing about my years in Anthrax. Like, you can like them, and you don't have to, like, say, I mean, if you like Joey Belladonna's era better, that's okay, but you can still like the records I made. And that's the same thing with the Karabi album. Like, you can like it. You don't have to say, you know, how does this compare to, you know, Theater of Pain? Okay, it's not as good, so I won't like it. I don't like it. So.
And I think it has to be more authentic than that, you know, just because it's not Vince Neil. I mean, I at least say, okay, well, I remember, you know, when he first joined, I was like, I'm going to at least go buy the new album, or before I buy it, I'll check it out, you know, I'll give it a listen. I think that's more fair observation. But, you know, I got to say, too, John, fact that you're still, you and Armored Saint are still doing it 40 years later, that kind of says right there, you guys have staying power. It kind of says that, you know, we're doing something right, because 40 years later, people are still, you know, buying the band's albums. And you know, I dare say, John, this new album, Pushing the Sky, that comes out October 23rd, I was, you know, I tell people up until now, I'm a huge, like, Kiss fan, and Ace Frehley recently put out that album, Origins, too. And up until this point, I was like, you know, that's the best thing that's come out this year. But I'm going to have to say Armored Saint now, only because as much as I love a new Ace album, you know, that's an album like of covers. This is like original material, and I think as far as a metal album, it really is. Because we haven't had a lot of great stuff coming out this year because of this pandemic. Once people hear this, I really think, I dare say, this would be the best metal album of 2020.
Well, it's very kind of you, brother. I appreciate that. Thank you. Also, AC/DC has a record coming out here in a couple weeks. So
and it's interesting. I heard the first single, and man, that is killer. And it's kind of coming out at a funny time because, you know, 2020 is like 40th anniversary of 40th anniversary of Bon Scott's death, 40th anniversary that Brian Johnson's been with the band. You know, 40th year that since John Bonham's passing. They have all these interesting. So it's makes for an interesting. And final thing I kind of wanted to talk about that I thought was interesting, that I was reading in the press release about the album, is you were kind of talking a little bit about when you write songs, which we've done a little bit today, you kind of don't necessarily like telling people what the songs are about. You rather leave it open to kind of interpretation. And I was kind of curious, has there been can you think of a time when like a fan came up to you and they got something totally different on one of your songs, but it kind of impressed you? Wow, I can't believe you got that out of listening to that.
It happens all the time. It happens all the time.
Yeah.
And I love it. And I tell people when they say, like, I get this out of the song, is that wrong? And I was like, that's never wrong.
That's your experience,
It's always right. Like, you know, whatever it triggers in you is awesome. So that's great. You know, I feel the same when I listen to things. Like, you know, I don't know what certain songs by Zeppelin are about, really. I mean, I might have read or heard something, but I know maybe how it makes me feel, and I think that's the beauty of it. So I love that.
Yeah, and you were mentioning you know, your time with Anthrax. If we could go back in time, I was curious. Could you share with us like how you first got the gig? I mean, did you hear they were auditioning? Did somebody from a band or their management approach you?
Well, I think they obviously knew who I was. Obviously from my time with Saint, and perhaps they thought that, you know, my voice would embellish what they were doing musically, especially at that point. So I was contacted by Johnny Z, who was their manager for years and years.
Oh, wow.
And it was funny. I came home from my day job, and he had left me a message, and it was him just saying, "Call me back." And it was not too long after Joey was let go, and so I was like, I wonder what this is about. I pretty much figured. But I treasure my time in Anthrax. You know, we made some really cool records and a lot of really great music, and you know, Charlie, Frankie, and Scott are, you know, awesome musicians, and we had a lot of fun times and a lot of laughs, and you know, it was great. And you know, I think Joey Belladonna's done amazing with Anthrax and on these newer records, and you know, he's the right person for the job. You know, it's just he belongs there.
Now, I've seen you on internet recently. Talking about how you would love for there to be like some way for like you to do a tour with Anthrax, maybe you and Joey. Has there been any discussions of that, or is that just something you're kind of throwing out there?
Well, it wasn't really I never suggested that.
Okay, that's a good reason. Yeah.
Something that maybe Scott had alluded to in an interview.
Oh, okay.
And then somebody asked me about it.
Yeah.
And I just like, look, you know, if it's something that everybody can agree on,
Yeah.
it could be a fun thing and a comfortable thing, then yeah, it'd be fun. I mean, it would be cool for Armored Saint to open for Anthrax,
Yeah.
quite honestly.
Yeah, that would be even a better idea, I think. I mean,
Yeah.
and then maybe
So-
you could join them for a couple of your songs, you know?
Maybe, you know, who knows? We'll
Yeah.
see. I mean, you know, anything's possible. You know, a lot of people have done really cool, creative things through the years. And,
Yeah.
and you know, Anthrax is a really inventive band.
Yeah.
They've really pushed the boundaries when it comes to trying so many different things they have in their career, which is really awesome. So,
Yeah.
you know, who knows? We'll see.
And,
First, we got to be
yeah.
able to play shows first.
Yeah. And you know, your time, and I think it's kind of interesting because as many people may bash, you know, your time in the band, I think because they've had quite, you know, not just Joey, but they had a number of other guys try to come in as lead singer, but didn't last too long. But I would dare say that you and your era and Joey's era probably are equally, you know, as popular. What was your favorite album you did with Anthrax, if you had to pick one?
You know, I like them all.
That's
actually.
good.
There's really some great moments throughout. You know, I think there's certainly some really cool songs on each of those records. You know, a lot of people talk about White Noise because it's the first one.
Yeah.
And it was really kind of special. But, you know, I like Stomp. I love Volume 8. I think it's kind of underrated.
Yeah.
We've Come For You All was super strong. So.
Oh, now on that album, you guys had Roger Daltrey from The Who.
Right.
Now, was he in the actual studio, or did he just kind of sing?
No, I didn't do my parts with him, which is a bit of a drag because I never met Roger.
Wow.
Which is sad, but you know, I'm honored to be on a song with him.
That's cool, yeah.
That's really,
Yeah.
really cool.
Yeah. You know, going back to talking about people, you know, being addicted to their electronic devices. I mean, it must amaze you, John, to see technology come where it is. I mean, where you don't even really need to be in a studio even to record a song. You can do it on your iPhone. I mean, that's pretty amazing, you know, when you stop and think about it.
Yeah, that is wild. I mean, there is some pros and cons, and the pros are cool. I mean, Pro Tools is a very helpful way to record music these days, and these videos we've made are like probably a fifth of the price that it cost to make videos back in the 80s. So, you know, there's definitely some pros to technology, absolutely. I've done so many video conference interviews, and, you know, I'm here talking not with youth today. I've done Zoom interviews, and it's just like, this is like science fiction stuff 30 years ago. So it's pretty cool. Again, it's about balance. It's just about balance. It's about using it and not letting it consume you at the same time. That's the key.
Yeah. And now I like to ask people too, like I'm pretty interested, like how did you come up with the name Armored Saint? I mean, I'm assuming like because you guys are metal, but was that pretty much it?
Well, we actually went to go see the movie Excalibur, and we were probably all stoned, and was really blown away by it. And I think Gonzo was, you know, he came up with his name, Armored Saint, and we all just said, we hate it. And he was like, what?
Yeah.
That sucks.
But it seems fitting.
Why?
Yeah.
And I think he was hurt. And then he just kept bringing it up, Armored Saint. And we're like, all right, I kind of like it now. So we went with it.
And you know, I'm sure when you were coming up, there weren't as many like thrash bands as there was when you guys were first, you know, getting on the music scene. So my question was, when you were growing up, John, who were some of your influences as far as you know, bands or even like singers that influenced you to do what you're doing?
I loved a lot of pop when I was a little kid.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, certainly the Beatles and you know, some really cool 70s groups. You know, Looking Glass, the Raspberries. Like, they were really cool pop singers and musicians. Badfinger, that were writing great songs.
Oh wow, yeah.
Plus, I was really into like soul music. You know, like Earth, Wind and Fire and
Interesting.
Commodores,
Wow.
Ohio Players, and, you know, Stevie Wonder.
Wow.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that has a big influence on me to this day. I love all those groups. And, you know, anything. There's a band called Black Pumas, who was like a new school kind of R&B band, who are incredible and great singer. Guys are awesome. So, you know, and then we were into the, you know, like, then we started getting into rock, and, you know, it was Sweet and Queen and Kiss and you know, UFO and Thin Lizzy and then Van Halen, and, you know, it just, I mean, there were so many amazing groups, Aerosmith, Ted Nugent, you know, it just goes on and on.
And so, like, Because like even if you go back like to early Armored Saint, I mean, nobody can deny you guys are like pure metal, like the aggression. Do you think that you guys became kind of like a thrash band because of just what you lived through, and you know?
I don't think. I mean, I think there's moments when we have some some powerful thrash elements, but I don't think we're really a thrash band in a classic way that say a band like certainly like Testament or
Slayer
or Slayer, that you think of when you think of thrash.
Yeah.
I don't think so. We're more of like a metal / hard rock band, and I think for us it's a lot more about just kind of grooving, having a great riff behind a really cool groove behind the rhythm section of Joey and Gonzo, and I think that's really more of our wheelhouse.
That's interesting because I do think a lot of fans put you in with those thrash bands, and it's kind of interesting because the reason I brought that up is in listening to the new album, definitely there's that metal element to the new album, but I will tell people like what I really appreciate about your vocals is like the vocals are real clear. You enunciate like everything you're saying, and there's actually even for being a metal band, you can hear melody throughout all the songs, which is great. I think it makes the music that much better.
Well, that's just that's the way we work. We try to do things that are memorable, and I think there's a couple key components to most songs, and that's really cool groove, bluesy approach to singing, and big hooks, and you can killer riffs, and that's a pretty good staple of what's important in a rock metal song.
And it's kind of interesting to hear that you were like a guy influenced, let's say, by like various, like you said, everyone from Ted Nugent to Earth, Wind and Fire. So I think that has a lot to do with you singing the way you do, which is great. I don't think anybody's gonna have any complaints when they hear the new album. And final thing I want to ask you about the new album is I seen Joey was a producer on this. Talk a little bit about what it's like to have your bandmate and so heavily involved with production, and how you feel about having somebody within the band produce versus having an outside producer.
Well, Joey's amazing. He's just a multi-talented guy. He wears many hats for Armored Saint. He produces. He pretty much manages the band. He kind of oversees a lot of business. And, probably to his chagrin, he doesn't necessarily always like that job. And it's probably creating a lot of frustration for him through the years, and probably a lot of stress. But we count on him to do that, and that's just the way it is. And he's just a really talented musician. Probably the most gifted person I've ever been in contact with, and he can play bass. He's a great guitar player. He can play keyboards. He sings. He can produce. He's an engineer. He's just a really talented person. And has a great ear for music. So
that's great.
And he's our leader. And
wow.
So it's just plus he's my best friend. So it's like he's just to be able to be in a band like that with somebody that's really really good friend of yours. I mean, I feel pretty. It's a special bond.
That's great. Now, I was curious. Now Joey was also briefly in Anthrax, but not when you were in the band, right?
He was during a run that we were doing on the road. That when I was in the band, and he did some shows actually after I was out of the band.
So what was that?
In fact, I think he did some shows with Dan Nelson. So
oh wow!
Go figure.
Yeah. Did that? What was that like having like your old buddy kind of there with you? That must have been fun, huh?
That's a good question, and probably it was a little hard for me at times. I probably was a little jealous, and I had to cope with that. But,
wow.
That's life, man.
Yeah, that's life.
That's the way it goes, I get a little jealous when Joey goes and plays in Face Warning, but I love Face Warning. They're a great band, and Ray and Jim are amazing and super talented, and Joey's been there for years, so he should do it. And it's like his second home. But I get a little jealous, of course. He's my bud. I think that's a normal feeling. It's not like I have utter animosity.
It's an honest answer.
Like, you're doing that? Okay. Good luck. Go have a good show.
Almost kind of like if
these are normal feelings. I think it would be odd if there was none.
That's just an honest answer, I guess. But now let me ask you: when your time when Anthrax came to an end, Talk about your the thought process of starting up Saint again, as opposed to maybe going solo or starting a band of your own.
Well, I don't have a desire to do that at the
Yeah.
moment. I sometimes feel like there's some things I would like to do musically.
Yeah.
I don't know. I haven't had the gumption to
Do it.
push it through yet
Yeah.
at this point to actually do it. But who knows? You
Yeah,
know?
and I think
One
it's
day, perhaps.
I think it's a smart move on your part, because I think almost going back to Armored Saint, it gave people like a second dose of it, in a sense that people remind people, hey, we're over here, Armored Saint, remember us. I almost think the band became more popular since you went back to Armored Saint.
Well, there's something about nostalgia,
Yeah.
and the people kind of yearn for it, and there's a new generation of people, and people are exposing their kids to this band and to a bunch of the bands that they were fans of when they were younger. So it's pretty cool. It's it could. I mean, there's no reason that it can't just continue on and on even after we're dead.
Yeah.
You'll still be listening to Zeppelin and Van Halen records, and you're still going to listen to them. So and you can still discover them. So that's the beauty of the record, and that's why the record's got to be really amazing, because it lives on once you're gone. And I think that's the key to it. So that's why it's shows are fun and shows are great, and I love playing. But a show's kind of a one-time thing, and then it's done. Whereas the record, you can always put that on and always get inspired by it. So.
Yeah, and I know you're a very busy man, John, so we're going to get ready to wrap it up. But I wanted to ask one final thing, which was you mentioned that you guys are working on a third video. What video was it for again?
It's for Missile the Gun, and it'll probably come out, I'd say right around the time the record is released. Hopefully maybe the day of or something.
Oh, great. Okay. Yeah. Well, Mr. Bush, thanks for taking time to do this. It's great talking to you. As you can tell, I'm a longtime fan, but I really urge people to go out and get the new album, Pushing the Sky. It's great from top to bottom. Anything else you'd like to say, John, before we wrap it up?
No, just get the record. Punching the Sky is a killer record. I really believe in it. And when you listen to it from track 1 to track 11. Listen to the whole record.
Okay, thanks again, John. You have a nice day. Bye-bye.
All right, you too, bud. Thanks for the support. Be safe out there.
Okay, you too. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Uh-huh.